I just walk you through how Zoom really works. Uh, what we're on is a webinar. It's a very high bandwidth intensive activity for the next 45 to 50 minutes. So just make sure that you're closing all other parallel tabs if you want to optimally hear and watch us speak. In the interim, there's a bottommost panel on your Zoom handles, which lets you ask us any questions or put something on the chat box. Feel free to do that in case you got any questions in terms of what you want should be answered. Just keep doing that as much as you'd like. Look, my chat with Nishchay is going to be a fireside chat. Nishchay is one of the undergrad students at Northeastern pursuing his bachelor's in a STEM degree. We're hosting him to ask him more about the transfers, how do really credit transfers happen, how should you be choosing the right major in the United States, what does it really take to study bachelor's in the United States, how is the ecosystem, how is the level of opportunity in the United States, uh, whether you should do a STEM degree or not, and the fact that while on the East we believe that America is the land of opportunity, how is his experience? So I've got tons of questions for Nishchay, but before I introduce him, we just wait for a couple of more minutes for people to join in. Until then, if there's any question you have around opportunities in the United States, on degrees in the United States, how to find the right university fit, how to find the right major, how does gen ed work? How do you plan your study abroad journey for maybe for yourself or your son or your daughter or nephew or niece or acquaintance or kin? But until then, please feel free to put down any questions you may have, and I will take them forward with Nishchay. Just 2 more minutes. In 120 seconds, we begin officially. I'd request my colleague Shreya to ensure that we've sent all the reminder communications to people who had signed up. We have over 500 people this morning who have signed up for the webinar. I'd love to start when all of them have joined in, or most have. So just bear with me for a minute or two, and then we begin. We've started getting questions being poured in. I'd love for all of you to put forth any questions that you may have for us. And yes, thank you, Shivank. I'll make sure that I'll put that across to Nishchay. Any other questions that you've come here to seek the answers to, and I will get that rolling in front of Nishchay once we start. But look, I think now is a good time to start. Hi, everybody. I'll introduce myself one more time. I'm Praneet. I serve as the Associate Vice President for Upgrad. I lead product and strategy for the group. I have with myself Nishchay Malik, who's one of the students at Northeastern, currently in India on a summer break. He's pursuing his bachelor's in information technology. Nishchay did not really go through the traditional study route. Of course, we'll ask him more about his journey, about his background, about why did he choose the United States, about whether he took APs or he took an SAT, or how did he choose the right major. So Akansha, thank you for asking that. We'll ask him about whether he considered a STEM degree or a non-STEM, and if he chose whatever he did, why did he choose that? And look, the most important part is this is going to be a fireside chat between me and Nishay, and I want a third person to equally have a voice. So the third person is each one of you. Make sure you put forth all questions that you may have, and then um, I will keep asking Nishay about the most general, I mean, the most frequently asked stuff that uh, most of you will put in the chat box. But I think largely higher education um, internationally has become a booming market. India sends almost 750,000, about 7.5 lakh students um overseas every year. Um, about 1 lakh plus students choose the United States essentially because it is a land of opportunity. It is the number one economy in the world. It is a very robust tech hub, a hub for innovation, research, breakthroughs, whether scientific or academic or we are startups. The most amount of Fortune 500 companies are based in the United States. So it's a land of economic prowess, prosperity, and growth. And so there is no doubt that why do people pick the United States, despite the fact the United States is very strict on its immigration statute. It's still not surprising that the sheer amount of jobs, the sheer amount of chances that the United States gives for you to move there to study from some of the best universities in the world in the United States, um, and get onto fantastic jobs, um, makes the United States a very promised land. So at this point, I'd love for us to introduce Nishay, um, who will now introduce himself. But my first question to you, Nishay, would be, who are you really? Um, and about 3 years, or almost 2 or 3 years into your degree in the United States, how have things unraveled for you? How have your personality, or how have your character and personality and values shifted over time? So who were you when you first thought about this, and who are you as we speak to you right now?
Thank you so much, Praneet sir, firstly for having me, and thank you so much, Team Upgrad, for having me. Good morning, everyone, and I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Nishchay, and I'm a student. I'm from Delhi. I've completed my schooling from St. Anandaram Japuria School, which is in Vasundhara, Ghaziabad. Then, yeah, I've always wanted to go to like America. That was always at the back of my mind. But then after my 12th, when I started doing my research and stuff, I was like, okay, wait a minute, that is way more expensive than I thought it would was going to be. So um, yeah, so I'll get to it, what decisions I make, why I made them, and but then before that, I'll quickly tell you what I'm doing right now. I did this program with upgrade of 1+3, where I did my first year in India in Impact Hub campus from Hyderabad. And then I transferred my credits to Northeastern University, which is in Boston, where I'm currently studying. I've completed my 2 semesters over there. So overall, in my degree, I've completed my 2 years. 2 years of degree is still left. The journey has been quite a roller coaster from my end, but then it was fun. It was exciting. I've learned a lot of stuff. And yeah, the degree which I'm doing right now is a Bachelor's of Sciences in Information Technology. So that's about me. And now to answer your question, what has changed and what I have picked up along the way? It's a lot of stuff actually, like packed into one roller coaster, if I put it like that. So when I was in my 12th or like in my high school, I was someone who was like, who used to say yes to everything. As in, like, you want me to dance on the stage, I'll do that. You want me to host something, I'll do that. You want me to start anything, I'll be always happy to help for the sports, for anything. So I was a go-getter, like anything in extracurricular, I want to be there. So, but then I realized over time that Indian education system doesn't incentivize you as much for doing all of that. I'm someone who's into filmmaking. Filmmaking is one of my passion that I do. So that's why I've always had this thing in mind. I want to be in a system where I can make use of the quality that I have, that I want to do this, I want to do that. And if I'm put in a situation where I'm being compared to someone else, the grades is just not the only factor. Of course, that is always important. That should be a way to perceive someone, but then not the only thing. So that is why I chose America. And when I came here, I'm essentially doing everything that I was doing when I was in India, but then now I have the platform to do it. Now I have more resources that I can utilize, more culture that I'm exposed to, and so many new people, so many new ways I can utilize those resources. The filmmaking thing that I was talking about, for example, I have now the platform, the resources to take my passion to another level. For example, I have like Hollywood level equipments to use in my university itself. So things like that. And I'm learning a lot of new stuff. And yeah.
Wait, so you mentioned that you're doing IT and now you're saying, I mean, now that I hear you talking, you're also pursuing maybe media or content as a hobby. Would you like to describe more about how universities in the US foster that environment or that safety net or security for you that you can be pursuing one thing, but conversely or contrastingly, if you've got more interest that may not be in parallel, but um, are different, the school supports it. So how does the education system really work between minors and when you pick a major or dual majors?
So education is a very, no, I'd not say small, but it's one of the resources that the university provides, because nowadays you and I, like everyone knows that if you want to learn something, if learning and education is the only reason you're going for university, you're doing it wrong. You want to go to a place, you're spending so much money, you want to utilize all of it and like as much of it as you can, and you want to make use of the resources that you have. So education is a part of the university experience. The other part is the resources, the other stuff. It could, in my case, it's filmmaking. For you it could be, let's say, robotics. For you it could be, even if it can have something to do with your education itself, it can have something to do with coding. You will have platforms, you will have international forums where you can participate, where you can put for put yourself forward. So how university incentivizes it is that you can, like, unlike India, you you have a lot more flexibility in Western countries when it comes to choosing what you want to learn. So your majors are always going to be there. For example, I'm always going to study IT, but then in terms of minor, I have a flexibility to choose virtually anything. Like I can do a filmmaking course, I can also do a marketing course, I can also do a business course in my degree itself. And it's going to be rewarding, as in, it's because they're Americans are more practical about how we approach the world. For example, if you're going in an IT field, it's IT is not the only thing that you're going to be using in your whole uh, journey. So marketing is also going to be a part of it, and a lot of different things. You never know where you're going to use them. So they incentivize that. They provide you those resources and everything that you can use. And yeah, it adds on to your portfolio over time.
Largely, what I hear you saying is whether you've picked major IT or computer science or engineering, if there's a specific interest that you have, the universities in the United States are open for you to pursue it. And you can access as much infrastructure as you want as long as you are interested in it. So that gives you a 360-degree environment to holistically grow it, against or versus what we've got here, where we declare a degree and the only laboratory or equipment or infrastructure that we can use largely is the specific major or degree that you've picked. So help me understand more about your choice. This webinar largely caters to how you did not choose, and I'm very curious to know what did you actually do. I mean, now that I know you're at Northeastern, and I'd love for the audience to know about Northeastern from you more than me, that how do you describe that school? How do you describe the city of Boston? And then we'll come to how did you finally decide that you wanted to go, and what did you really do?
Okay. So Boston is a very beautiful city. It's like one of the most beautiful cities, if not the most, that I've ever been to. And it's a very student-like environment over there. Every 10 minutes or so, you're gonna find some big university which you have seen in movies or like which you have seen people talk about. So it's kind of an unreal feeling being in that place and looking around. You're gonna see so many
Share the
legendary campuses. Am I audible?
Now you are? Yes. You were saying
Okay.
Boston is a wonderful city. Okay, next.
So it's like you've seen people talk about it in movies or like in general, like the legendary campuses. And when you are in the city, at that moment, it feels kind of unreal. It's a really beautiful city. You have those campuses like Northeastern being one of them. There's Boston University, there's Harvard, there's MIT, there's so many such universities. So the moment you step outside, you're going to see people your age. And it's a really fun environment. And Northeastern in general has a really good reputation. I did not have like I had an idea that Northeastern is a really well-known university, but when I go and talk to people in Boston and I tell them, or like anywhere in America, I tell them that I'm from Northeastern, I get a sense of respect from them. I sense that they go like, "Oh, you're from Northeastern," and it speaks for itself. The university, the resources that they provide, they have, for instance, they have over 500 student clubs. I'm in a filmmaking club. It's called NUTV. There's other 500 clubs, which are most of them are very well funded. They provide you international level exposure, anything that you can think of. If you're into sports, you're gonna have access to proper full-fledged stadiums. If you're into anything related to robotics, you're gonna have laboratories which have millions of dollars worth of equipments. If you're into anything, for instance, you're gonna have those resources for it. So Northeastern provides that platform, and it's a holistic environment. You're not just limited to the degree that you're doing. It's a part of your journey. So that's
Excellent.
the thing. And yeah.
So how did you end up choosing it? And what did you finally, I mean, I'm sure you must have thought about the cost in that you had to incur and the fact that you had to overnight, kind of plan that how do you move from Delhi to Boston? How will the finances, or where will the finances come from? What major to pick? How did you navigate that part of your journey, and what did you end up doing?
So for those of you who don't know, that I was from a commerce background, and now I switched from commerce to an IT degree. It's not that I did not like commerce, but then most of us decide in our 10th standard that we're going to choose this stream and it's going to decide where our life goes, a major part of our career goes. But then in America, since there's not that rigid divide between the type of stream that you choose, that's why I was able to switch, because I later realized that I wanted to pursue that. So firstly, that was one of the reasons I chose America. Other than that, when the thing which I told you, that extracurricular being incentivized, that happens in the Western world, and America is the hub of it. That's why I wanted to go to America, but then before 12th, I did not do my research. When I started researching, I realized it's a little out of my budget. That's why I started looking at the countries like Canada or Australia, which also provides a similar platform, but then for a little less cost. But then my heart was somewhere still stuck in America because I'm a filmmaker and a lot more things. The America is essentially the place to go for the opportunities. It's land of opportunities. So I was going to Canada. I had an offer letter in my hand. I was planning to go there. My processes were going on, but still I was kind of researching that maybe I'll find something better, a cheap alternative, but then still a good university. But so then I came across this program on an online advertisement of Upgrad. I made a call to them. They explained me that transfer model. I'll be very honest with you. At that time, I did not quite grasp what a transfer model is. But then what they were providing me essentially was the same degree for a very less cost and more or less the same experience and the same resources. So I talked to my parents about it, and then here I am studying in Northeastern.
Awesome. And very curious to know, how does the credit transfer model really work? And while I'm speaking, you also want to acknowledge the fact that I did receive questions from Shubrika, an anonymous attendee, and Akansha and Shivang. I will make sure to put them through to Nishchay. So just stick with us, and I keep asking him in the right sequence. But very curious to know, how does this credit transfer model really work? Um, for a long time in history, I've known students who go to the United States, pursue the first 2 years of their associates in a community college, and then they finally transfer to a better school. They do a 2+2. So that's not new, but how did you plan it and how smooth is it? And I know that a lot of students like you, Nishchay, who change their domain but pursue AP. They do some advanced placement courses, they then transfer in. But I'm curious to know, when you did your credit transfers or when you planned a credit transfer program, and we'll come to that next and understand from you that the whole setup in detail. But did you also remember? I mean, do you still remember comparing between APs or credit transfers, or exploring the idea of a community college followed by a different school in the US for your major?
Uh, can you please repeat your question,
So
just like concise?
the fact that, so part one is you pursued credit transfers,
Mm-hmm,
and how was that whole contrast or comparison between AP, a
mm-hmm,
credit transfer which you did, which I'd love to know more about, and third is people who go the usual route, which is a community college somewhere in the United States, and then they finally for the major pick a school. So maybe if you didn't go through it, have you had student or peers at Northeastern who came through three different ways? And how do you consider yourself different with your credit transfer system?
okay. So it's a little different, all three routes, and all of these have their pros and cons. But then I'd say, as I've already stated, that the what you study in a campus, the education part of it is very important, of course, but then also the quality of education is important. What you are studying and how you're studying it, and also other than that, the resources and the platform that you get is also very important. So if you would go from, let's say, an AP or a community college, you won't have that platform, that international level exposure, those resources which I keep coming back to again and again. That is something which would not be at a stature of a university like Northeastern provides. So, or like any good American university in general, which has a really good international exposure and resources in general. So you would not know until you have experienced it, the level of things that you learn, the amount of things that you take in when you're in an environment like that, where you're surrounded by like-minded people, but then very high intellectual conversations which are going on inside the campus, that things you would miss out on in an environment which is made for you to just kind of save money or like compromise in a lot of stuff. In a university environment, you won't be compromising in a like in any of those resources and or stuff like that. So that is a very important part of a university experience, because essentially if you just wanted to learn that stuff, there are a lot of ways you can do. You can do certifications, you can do AP, as you said. You would be learning all of that thing in theory, but then grasping it and having that practical knowledge of doing it and implementing it is one thing. And also utilizing the portfolio and doing stuff with it using those resources is also another thing. So these things you get when you come from a university with a good stature and good resources.
Got it. And so just walk me through step by step. Here's a student in India who's pursuing commerce in high school, thinks that he wants a STEM degree. For all our viewers right now, a STEM degree promises international students in the United States to get 2 extended years of OPT or the post-study work visa, making it 3 full years of PSW. And of course, STEM degrees are endorsed to have better jobs and higher number of jobs in the United States. So I am not surprised that you want to do a STEM course. So a student in commerce wants to do a STEM course, has decided later in his 12th that I finally want to move. How did the steps actually look like for you? And fast forward, if you could go back in time and do anything differently, what would that be, if at all, Nishchay?
So my steps looked like, of course, I did not know anything about coding at all, or like computers in general. It's very funny the reason why I took IT. Firstly, yes, I did. I'm a tech nerd. I like how devices work. I like how the softwares work and stuff like that. But then it's very different from coding part. I somewhere or the other knew that I wanted to go that route, but then it was a totally alien territory for me. So when I joined, I did not even know how to write a first line of code. But then that's the thing. In a university level curriculum, they ensure that every student, whether you're starting from scratch, whether you really know what you're doing, you are taught from zero. Yeah, like we start from the very scratch for a beginner level, and it goes from that level. So from writing the very first line of code to making websites and stuff, it is a gradual process, but then it's a process. It's an American curriculum. So they make sure that whatever is happening, you're grasping that side by side as we go. And also you're implementing it through assignments and through weekly check-ins. So that was there. There were a lot of friends in my class who did not have calculus in their 12th. I had commerce with math. So I was a little aware with the mathematics part of the things. But then similar to me, they like how I did not know any coding part. They did not know mathematics part. I did not find them struggling with any of it, because whatever we started from like fifth, sixth grade level of mathematics. So wherever you are at this point, that's the a really good quality of American curriculum. You can always switch as long as you are willing to work for it. Other than that, if I'd go back in time and change something, it would be only one thing, definitely, is that that would be my understanding of the transfer process and the credit process. Because yes, I was doing that thing, I was going through that process, but then as a student, I was honestly a little nervous that how the process is gonna go. What if this happens? What if that happens? I had hundreds of questions. And if I had the understanding of what a transfer model is, of what a credit transfer is, I would be a little more calmer, because the process in itself would have been exactly the same, but then I would be a little less anxious as a student. So yeah.
Got it, Nishchay. And so, at this point, I'd love to bring in some questions just to help everybody revise. Look, Upgrad runs a wonderful 1+3 or 2+2 model. As Nishchay briefly explained or touched upon, this is a 4-year higher education system. The first 2 years lead you to an award called the associate's degree. The last 2 years then grant you or help you get entitled to a bachelor's degree award. The upgrad program is a 1+3 or 2+2. You can, out of the 120 credits you do to pursue your full bachelor's, 30 in the first year, 60 by the second year. You can very well do in India offline or online, offline at our Impact Hub in Hyderabad, and then go on and choose AI or machine learning or IT or computer science or business or what have you, say biology or life sciences or business or architecture or interior design, depends on what you really wish to do. The important thing being that the first 2 years are general ed, which is a gen ed coursework, which means no matter which major you pick, the first 2 years in the United States is a general ed coursework. It'll have science, economics, math, arts. We'll know more about it from Nishchay after this, but I'd love to kind of jump in and start asking questions that have poured in. So let's go to Shubrika first. Uh, Shubrika wants to know from you, Nishchay, that beyond academic scores, what do universities really look for? And what are the values of global mind? I mean, or let's say, how does she inculcate and develop an international mindset? That students may be expected to have when they transfer in, that she can begin now. And I think Shubrika puts a very strong point. I'd love to go to Nishchay once and just ask him, as a general consensus, I'm sure you've gone with so many more upgrad students who are now pursuing their degrees at Northeastern or Purdue or IIT Chicago or so on and so forth. Do you guys in your cohort feel the same sense of security, safety, a pursuit of as many chances or as many opportunities on campus as a regular student? Do you think there, there's this contrasting opinion that I hear from many students saying that if I go as a transfer student, I'll have less exposure. If I go as a transfer student, the school may not accept me at all. The school may not even give me the same degree, or there's something else that's going to be written or impressioned on my, on the certificate or the degree that I'll get. How would you answer that? And what has your experience been, Nishchay?
So that is a really good question, and I wish like 2 years back I knew answers to all of them, and it would have made my journey a lot more smoother. So I'll answer it in very detailed way because that is really one thing which is which creates a lot of misconception in students and a lot of confusion, a lot of anxiety, and which makes students at the end of the day avoid this route. But then the truth of the matter is, technically speaking, the degree that you get from a university, there's no difference at all. There will be nothing embarked that you're a transfer student. You did 1 year from here, or maybe 2 years from here, then 2 years from our university. The final degree that you're going to have is a standard degree which any other student would get if they would have gone through a conventional route. So that answers that for the people who are seeking for jobs, the people who are giving jobs, they wouldn't care if you have done your half your degree from somewhere else or half your degree from Northeastern or any other university, because at the end of the day, they care more about the degree that you have. Because when a university grants you a degree, they are essentially guaranteeing the company that, okay, we approve of the student, that whatever we have taught, that student knows how to implement it, and that student has the knowledge of that particular subject. So essentially, if the university is giving that guarantee, that's all the employer needs. That is one thing, that is the technical aspect of it. Other than that, how the experience is going to differ. Am I audible?
Hoping that second.
Am I audible?
Yes, now you are. Please go ahead.
All right. So that's the technical aspect of it. But then if you ask me how what the difference is between an experience of a student who is going conventionally through 4 years or like doing a 1+3 or 2+2, how's that going to look? Essentially, since the way we study in India is very different from what happens in America. How we study in India is that we have a set batch of students that are allotted a classroom. You go to that same classroom every single day. You study with the same batch. So that's why you have a group of peers that you meet and greet every single day for the rest of your 4 years. But in America, what happens is you get to choose what subjects you want to study when before each semester. So what that does, it places you in a classroom where there would be a fourth year student who has chosen that subject in that semester. There will be a third year student, there will be a first year student, and it changes every semester. So it's not going to be like there's already an existing friend group which you are intruding. So you never feel out of the place in terms of social life. Other than that, educationally, you will always have a mixed batch of students. You will always see students who are from first year, who are just starting their degree, and who also know how the university works, some students who are in fourth year. So you will never have an advantage or a disadvantage because it's always going to be a mixed environment.
Awesome. Like that does paint a very clear perspective. Now on to Shubrika's question. She says when transfer students actually say join on campus, what is the mindset that faculty really expect out of them beyond the academic scores? Like, what is the best thing that these students can do to cope up, Nishchay?
Uh, I'd say just utilizing the resources by the university. And what a university or an employer essentially looks for in a country like America, it's a little different from what they look for in India. For example, if you pair up two students, if you have a matchup between them, one has 97 percentage, other one has 96. More often than not, 99% of the time, the person with 97% is going to be chosen over the student who has got a 96. But in America, grades are a small part of your whole personality, of your whole portfolio. What they look for is essentially what you can bring to the table for the company. If a company is giving you $100,000, they expect you to earn a $200,000 uh, thing, $200,000 for the company. So that's essentially how they teach you with that mindset, that they want to inculcate that information, that you're able to implement it and earn that stuff. If you're doing something for yourself or for a company, you are able to do that and execute the knowledge that you have. That's the way they teach you.
Super. And while we're still there, can you talk to us a little bit about the co-op approach that Northeastern has? I think it is one of the most globally acclaimed institutions that is number one in the United States for co-op. And I also saw someone asking that how does the internship portion really work? And if you can work part-time, yes, you can work part-time. There is a special visa called CPT, a curricular practical training, and Northeastern's number one in the United States. Harvard and MIT are number seven, number eight, and number six. Northeastern's number one. They've got 50,000 employers that let you do co-op. But we'd love to know from the horse's mouth that how does the co-op process at Northeastern really work like, Nishchay?
So co-ops, just to make it easier for students to understand, they're like internships, but then you get a lot more practical exposure, you get a lot more experience and the responsibilities when you go to work in a company. So that's essentially a very boiled down version of what a co-op is and what you can expect from it. And Northeastern, as you said, is number one in the United States when it comes to the co-op programs. So you get an advisor for you for your 4 year or 3 year journey in your educational degree. They kind of design your portfolio in a way that you get the relevant co-ops, and your ability to get co-ops are the chance of getting a really good co-ops are a lot more, because when you're applying for those co-ops, you're essentially competing with students from Northeastern, not from whole America, which is a little different what happens in other universities. When you apply for a co-ops, you're competing with whole of America. If you're a Harvard student or an MIT student, they don't, from what I know, they don't have a platform where you're just competing with those Harvard students. In Northeastern, you do get that platform and that guidance. For example, I have a friend, his name is Colin. He's pursuing a double majors. He's doing music as well as computer science. So the co-ops that he's applying to, and he's designing his portfolio in a way, he's applying to companies like Sony, he's applying to companies like Bose, Spotify, which suits both of his double majors. And by the end of it, when he's going to complete his degree, he's going to have a really good case and a really good portfolio if he works with companies like that, which can make use of his portfolio, because every student is a different student and his portfolio is a little different. So the counselor sits with you throughout your journey. You can have n number of meetings with them. They'll try to understand that what do you expect from the degree and what do you want from your portfolio and your life on your and your career in general. And they're going to help you design it in a way that you land certain co-ops, and the companies are going to make sure that you have that level of exposure and work that is needed.
Awesome. And I just want the audience to realize that out of my own experience as an international student in the United States, if you got hands on a co-op, 8 out of 10 times your job comes out of the co-op employer that you've got. And so look at this practical setup. You do 1 year in India, then you got the chance to move to Germany, Australia, United States, Canada, United Kingdom, France, Finland, Canada. Now, if you choose the United States, if you do the first 2 years or the first year, and then you transfer, your general courses are done in India. So you save a lot of money, you save a lot of time, you move better prepared with a stronger headway into the major portion, say computer science or engineering in aerospace or mechanical or aeronautical or chemical, or you're doing nursing or biotechnology or cybersecurity. And once you do that, you get a co-op. In fact, Northeastern, if you do a 1+, he gets you two co-ops, one at the end of the second year, one at the end of the third year. And not only is it a paid co-op, but your employability in that market increases. So it's almost like all the general stuff you do in India move, all the specialized major backed stuff you do when you're in the US. Interesting. My next question to you, Nishchay, is SAT compulsory for students like yourself? When you're a transfer student, is SAT compulsory?
Short answer, no, because I personally did not even give an SAT. So it's not always required. And especially if you're going this route, this pathway model, you would not need to give it since you're already part of an American curriculum. So you know what is required, and whatever students prepare for in SATs, they essentially to showcase that, okay, we kind of anticipate what is coming towards us, the kind of level of education, we know what it is. That's one of the reasons why students give SATs and why university expects SATs. And since you're already part of American curriculum, in this case, you don't have to give.
Got it. And then we've got a follow-up question on that, Nishit. Tanishka wants to know the expected GPA but she's expected to have, and she's a transfer student to Northeastern. So tell me about two things. When you're a transfer student, do you also get subject to screening for your high school marks, or do you just get screened with your undergrad first few years of the first year GPA? What really is the criteria?
So you get screened for mostly, I'd say, I don't know the exact percentage, but then mostly it's the GPA from your first year or your second year in the degree which you're pursuing, because they, even let's say you get 60% in your 10th, or 60% in your 12th, and you have, let's say, 90% or 85% in your first year in your undergrad degree, then what they see is the trajectory that the student is going towards. So that is more important, and the recent grades that you get become more relevant. So I don't know if it is completely out of the picture, those 10th and 12th marks, but I'd say majorly they are. And more often than not, it negates any sort of impact that your grades from 10th or 12th might have, since you already have the most recent grades to showcase and the trajectory you're going towards.
Got it. Super. We'll do a quick rapid fire with all of the questions that are poured in for you, Nishchay. One student's asking you, what year did you transfer to Northeastern? How much does it cost to attend for you, and how do you manage those expenses? So we'd love for you to briefly answer. Uh, how much did you save on the tuition fee as a transfer student? The concept of transfer scholarships and why American universities, Nishchay, now more than ever has started awarding a higher degree of scholarships to transfer students than regular students. What's really the reason?
Okay, so the students who go through a transfer model, they are more likely to complete their degree and like they complete their degree faster when it comes to at least that university. That's why that's your answer to the recent question that you asked. That's why that was the reason of them awarding it more. Other than that, how I manage my expenses and how much I save the money, that would be, if I had to calculate it, would be roughly upwards of 30 lakhs for the first year. And what I'm spending in Northeastern as a student would be roughly 16 to $17,000 a year in terms of tuition fee. Other than that, maybe like 10 to 12,000 on top of that, maybe 12 to 14,000 roughly for my living expense in a year. That's what I'm spending in a year, and most of it for my living expense I'm able to earn it by myself through part-time and co-ops. Other than that, the educational part of it, it is covered through a student loan, and I would be able to. I don't even have to pay it as of now until and unless I complete my degree. And once since I'm doing co-op, since I'm part of the university, I'm associated with a university like Northeastern, there's a very good chance that the moment I land a job, it will be very quick that I'll be able to pay back that student loan.
I also want to kind of use this chance to bring out the fact that there are companies like Prodigy and Empower Finance that give you non-collateral loans for some of the best schools in the world. One of the partners that Upgrad uses is Empower, um, which gets you the last 2 years of your majors covered uh, without any security that you've against which that you would have had to apply for a loan. So it's an unsecured loan, but um, fully backed by a US company for some of the best schools in the United States. And so your repayment starts after you graduate, like Nishchay was mentioning. I've got a very interesting question here from Shubrika, who says, what are the best countries and universities that allow transfer after the first year? So this will be Germany on a 1+2. Some of the best schools are top 10 in Germany. Germany is, of course, now the third largest economy in the world. So there's United States, China, Germany, and then India. And Germany is robust. It's the number one economy in Europe. Um, has close to about 100,000, like a 1 lakh job figure vacant for people who are doing computer science or advanced manufacturing or advanced engineering or mechanical, or they're doing business or finance or accounting. So Germany is a great place to transfer to. Then there's Australia, which is incredible for business analytics, IT, cybersecurity, network engineering, computer science, robotics, accounting, especially, and finance. So you can transfer there. But if you want to do aerospace and mechanical, I'd recommend you America. If you want to do automobile or civil, I would recommend you both Germany and the United States. If you want to do computer science or gaming or AI or machine learning, again, Germany and the United States. But there are certain degrees that only have a very wide future in the United States, like packaging engineering, chemical, biochemistry, biomedical, um, aerospace, aeronautical, so on and so forth. So it depends, but I hope I've answered you, Shubrika. How many majors can we take? One or two? I'd pass this to you, Nishchay. And he's asking in America, we can take only one major in a 4 year and take different majors in each semester. And I mean, I think he really means if you can do more than one major and how does major really work. So maybe it'll be helpful at this point to explain to these guys, Nishchay, how does the combination of gen ed work and major work, and what do the first 2 years feel like? And how is it that the first 2 years are full of students and then the last 2 years are spread thin across all different majors that students pick?
Okay. So essentially, like if I boil down in a very simple words, how credit transfer work in general, and that's when you'll understand that what's the practicality of taking double majors, what's the practicality of doing like of for a student like me who's doing an IT degree as well as doing some media thing here and there. So what essentially happens is there are 120 credits for your 4 years, and you what you have to do as a student is you're expected to, based on your major, study some subjects. For example, I'm an IT student. I cannot get away with just studying media and communication. There are certain requirements by the university that I have to follow. Let's say, for example, they have a requirement which is like at least 12 credits should be from mathematics, at least 9 credits should be from English, at least, let's say, 21 should be from coding. But then there is a very big space which they leave for you to choose for. That a very big space would be your minor and your electives. That's where you get the flexibility to choose subjects like media and communications. Or if you take double majors in double majors, then what that does is the common subjects that the double majors have, for example, English and mathematics and those gen ed subjects that are there, they are very common in a lot of the degree. For example, if you're doing aeronautical or you're doing biomedical, you would definitely still be studying some sort of mathematics, some sort of English, some other subjects which are overlapping, so you don't have to do it again. But then maybe a little chunk out of that 120 credits would be allotted to that major, and then you're going to have to study those subjects. So you get a lot more flexibility with this model. I hope I'm clear with, and like if you want me to explain it with more detail, I can do that, but then I hope I'm clear.
Thank you, Nishchay. And I also want to add to that that when Nishchay says the general courses on economics or English or math, you have to mandatorily do it. So what you actually do with upgrade in the first 2 years through an American university uh, are these sets of courses that are mutual or common core to all the majors that you or any major that you may pick. Sharvil wants to ask you, Nishay, what was your total fees per year in INR? And I think it'll be worthwhile at this point, Nishay, to draw a contrast or a parallel between what normal students pay and what the upgrad students out of the transfer scholarship then pay to Northeastern.
So if you're looking for a conventional Northeastern University degree from a college like Horry or something like that, it would cost you definitely somewhere upwards of maybe $40,000 or like $35,000, something in that range. But then if you choose this pathway model or you go to like this pathway model and this credit, if you transfer credits to the university which I am in, and in this part of Northeastern, it would cost you somewhere around $16,000 is what I'm paying. It also depends. A lot of the students end up getting scholarship on even on top of the amount that is very less compared to the amount which I just told you. If we convert it into INR, if I'm not wrong, it would be roughly around 14.5 lakhs a year. But that is a very big and stark difference from compared to, let's say, 40 lakh rupees or 35 lakh rupees, which you would be paying otherwise for a college like Corey or something like that, for a conventional direct undergrad degree.
Do you mean 35 lakhs of just tuition or cost of attendance, Nishchay?
No, I'm just referring to the tuition. On top of that, you can add the cost of attendance, which is your living expense and stuff like that. It would cost you another, let's say, 10 to 12 lakhs a year.
Got it. So I hope you got the answer, Shubnil. We've got a couple of more students. I think we're in our last 5 minutes, Nishchay. So thank you for being patient and cooperative. There's a student who's asked us if I want to build a strong international profile in robotics or AI while transferring credits, what should I focus on right now? Internships, GP, or project work? Of course, I'll defer this to Nishchay, but I think all three. But when you do your credit transfer in your first year, or when you're doing your credits in the first year also gave Nishchay a lot of time to do all of these things on the parallel. So we'd love to know that story from you, Nishchay, that when you were in India doing your first year, what other things could you do on campus?
So, in my first year in Hyderabad, when I went to that Impact Hub, over there, I was elected as the student body president. So we started a lot of different initiatives. We had student clubs, we had some fests, we had some TED Talk events and stuff like that. Other than that, right now also we are working on a lot of stuff, which is an MUN, which will be having an impact hub and different things like that. There's a lot of site visits. There are a lot of people who are coming in to the impact hub, who are giving lectures, like outside guests and stuff like that. So there's a lot of exposure that you get on top of the just American education. So the exposure which I was referring to that you get from top universities like Northeastern, you would be getting a really good idea of what you can expect from being in India and not incurring that expense which you would living in America. You can experience a very similar stuff and experience all of these.
Thank you, Nisha. I also have a question then, a very interesting one. So, Srinidhi was asking, I transferred to the University of the United States, limited to partner schools, or can you apply to others as well? Is there an admission advantage to applying to partner schools? Are there some of the major university partners? So, Srinidhi, out of the upgrad scope of this, upgrad has potential partner schools or contracted partner schools that give you up to 50% transfer scholarship, bringing down the cost of your attendance to from 35-40 lakhs a year to nearly 20 lakhs a year. So that's there. But the fact that you've got a gen ed coursework lets you transfer that to any university in the United States. So still let Nishik comment on it, on his experience. But my sense is that as long as you can do gen ed, uh, we can transfer that to. We've had students go to Purdue, we've had students go to Northwestern, Northeastern, to California State, to University of California system. They get accepted everywhere. By the way, um, I just read yesterday that New York University's SPS, NYU SPS, lets you have a guaranteed admission in NYU if you have an associate's degree from the United States. So the first 2 years that you do with upgrad, or the first year that you do with upgrad, as long as you've got a good 3 GPA, which is what Nishchay, I think Nishchay had a 3.8 or 3.9 GPA, but if you have a 3 GPA, you can transfer to NYU. So I'm sure that that ought to answer it. Yes. How much scholarship did you get, Nishchay, annually as a transfer to Northeastern? Because Northeastern usually does not offer too many scholarships to international students. So would you like to answer that, Nishchay?
Yes, so I did not get a big hefty scholarship, but then I did get $1,000 scholarship, which is a lot, which is still a lot. But then, yeah, I did not get a super big scholarship, but in my opinion, how I view it is like the amount of money that I'm already saving, those 20 to 25 lakhs, and getting the same resources. I'd view it as a scholarship. So like 20 to 25 lakh if I include the savings, and then on top of that $1,000. But then
I
I know a
also
lot of, yeah.
I also want to highlight at this point that look, for most of you, when you look at Northeastern, your typical cost of attendance that you see is about 32 to $35,000 a year, compared to what Nishchay is paying as a transfer student, that is $16,000 a year. So assume the fact that you're already starting at a 50% lesser tuition. right?
Yeah.
What is the eligibility criteria? It's a 65 to 70% at least in your PCM or your main courses. And on top of that, 2.7 or 3 GPA, in fact, on your undergrad first year. So look, whatever you do in your high school is outphased largely. And what remains is your undergrad or the first year that you're doing in India. That GPA really is the deciding GPA of your scholarship to Northeastern, admission to Northeastern. But of course, the general passing rate for students who go that route is a 3 GPA. So it's not going to be a difficult task for you to get past. For AI/ML, is Germany good? Yes, of course. Germany is the number one innovation hub of in Europe after the United States, in the world as well, for breakthroughs in AI or machine learning or uh, engineering, so on and so forth. That said, which would be the best country if I want to do an international business? The United States or Germany, Australia or the UK? It depends on the budget. Even with us, some of the top 100 QS ranked schools in Australia or Germany, Germany is going to cost you less than 30 lakhs for all 3 years of degree. Australia is going to cost you less than 45 lakhs for the complete 3 year degree. Whereas in Australia, just 1 year is 45 lakhs. So it's a really expensive country to study in. Nishchay, Yen has a no Pawish foundation course, which is also referred to as Studio Kole, is not required. 1 year online learning would be a disadvantage in terms of co-op exposure compared to first year students experiencing account. Plus, can you join co-op webinars from Northeastern in your first online year to get prepared for second year? So Yen, the answer to your first question, I let Nishchay answer that, but I also want you to know that co-ops work on a visa category called CPT. You can only do 11 months of CPT. So whether you do a 4 year degree or on campus or 3 years on campus, you can only do the co-op twice. And co-ops never happen in the first year. They only happen in the second and third year, because even when you are done with your co-op, you have to come for a mandatory 1 term or 1 semester at least back into the university and then graduate. Now, look, like Nishchay was mentioning, the first 2 years are Gen Ed or general ed classes, which means that everybody picking every major is doing that Gen Ed coursework. So and the answer to your second question is yes. So do online or on campus in India. You get prepared for your second year co-op, and then once you enter the school, once you enter Northeastern in second year, you do the first co-op, and then you do the second co-op in the third year or the fourth year, and you're all set. But you understand that co-op is one piece of it, but you're saving, what Nishchay was mentioning, almost $25,000 every year because you're a transfer student. Yes. Yes, we've got transfer scholarship for commerce, law, arts, you name it, and we've got it. After transferring, the students often struggle more with culture shock or academic pressure. Nishchay?
Yes and no. Majorly because we are very exposed to a lot of American media in general, the movies that we consume, the YouTubers that we watch. So more or less, students do have an idea. Yes, there are certain ways, certain slangs or something that is going to take some time for you to grasp, but then it's more often than not, that's not the case. I've seen a lot of people. It's like just changing a state, like how I went from Delhi to Hyderabad in my first year. There are a lot of different cultural things, but then I'd say there's rather than a cultural shock, it's a mix of a lot of things, and learning a new curriculum and talking to a lot of people from different culture could be a lot in the start. But then since you're already exposed to that American curriculum, because first year over here, when you'll be studying that same thing, what they're essentially studying in America, the way that they are learning, you're used to that. So it's not going to be very different when you once you come to America, since you already expect that how they're gonna teach you that curriculum. People wise, I'd say Americans are one of the most sweetest people I've talked to. I've taught like some Australian people, some people from Dubai, and some other countries here and there, but then American people tends to be more inclusive when it comes to especially Boston people, because like most of my conversations have been with people from Boston. So they're very sweet people. It's everything is new for sure when it comes to culture, but it's not a culture shock since you already know what you're expecting. Since the first year that you spend in India, you're essentially mentally preparing yourself subconsciously because you're grasping that American curriculum and knowledge.
Super. We've got one more question and a very interesting one from Pratham. He says a lot of students follow the standard path when going abroad. Complete coursework, aim for internships, look for job. What made you decide to do things differently? And at this point, as the final question that I'm going to take from Pratham, is that look, I'd love for you, Nishchay, to answer, of course, the the obvious that why did you choose to do differently, but also I know that it's a myth and stereotype in the United States that you don't get campus jobs, and I know you have a part-time campus job offer. How is it that everything planned out the way it did, and what would you recommend to everybody else to just go on the right road?
All right. So as to why I chose this route would be very simple, because it saved me a lot of money and it kind of guaranteed me an admission in a university like Northeastern. If I had gone with the conventional route, I would not be in America right now, since it is comparatively a little more on the expensive side. But this pathway like kind of like opened that door for me, and since I really wanted to go to America, but then still I would not have chosen this route if it would be anything different when it comes to the level of resources that I get, or if there would be any sort of like maybe discrimination between a student doing from the first year inside Northeastern and going through a pathway model. So the very reason that it is exactly the same experience was the reason why I joined this. On top of that, I saved some money and guaranteed a seat in Northeastern. Other than that, what was the second question, sir?
That should be it. Just your that you had an on-campus job. How did you
Okay.
manage that?
So on campus jobs, a lot of the times, and I personally experienced that once you open YouTube, you're going to see hundreds of YouTubers posting videos titled "Don't Come to America." And once you open them, they're talking about how there are no jobs and stuff like that. There are two reasons for it. First one being it gets them views, of course. Like fear mongering is one of the easiest way to get views. Other than that, why that is more prevalent and why there's such a big myth is that a lot of the students firstly don't know how to apply. America, uh, so upgrad like provides you those resources that they teach you how to build a portfolio. They do it for you to a large extent, and that kind of helps. Other than that, if you're going for a degree like undergrad, there's a lot less competition for the students who are looking for jobs, since there are a lot less Indian students who are looking for jobs in the campus. You stand uh, a very good chance of landing a job, especially when upgrad is helping you decipher that what portfolio fits that job description.
Thank you, Nishchay. Um, Very interesting question. Northeastern is located in Boston and is close to other universities which are very prestigious. How accessible is it for students to interact, attend, or gain knowledge from those universities? And I know as someone who's been moving to, not moving, but like who's been actively engaged and involved with universities like MIT and Harvard, how would you describe that experience for yourself? And how would you analyze the ease and access to some of these best schools in terms of their infrastructure and research and their faculty or their student or peer groups?
So, like, I live right in front of Boston University. I can like see it from my balcony, and uh, the accessibility is always there. Unlike Indian University, it's not a closed off environment. I can just go anytime I want in a Boston University campus and sit there and study and do my assignments and whatnot. But then, in terms of the socializing part, the networking part, that's also very easy. Like, since I told you I'm from a filmmaking background, and like whatever background you're from, there's always a lot of sporting events going on. There's always a lot of like networking and socializing in terms of the projects you're working on. For example, I was a few months back, I was with a Harvard student, was leading a filmmaking project. I was a DOP, director of camera in their project. So there's always a lot of collaborations going on, especially in, not even especially in, like in any field. I've seen a lot of people, most of the people who like in a friend group, there you would find a student from Harvard, a student from MIT, a student from BU or Northeastern. That's a very common thing, because since it's a very centralized and a very social environment in Boston, and that's why, that's a part of the reason why I love Boston so much. Such a like collaborative university experience that you get, and it's really wonderful. So not only you can utilize those Northeastern's resources which I was talking about, those equipments, for example, which I'll be using for the project, for a Harvard students project, that would be equipments from Harvard. So you can also utilize to some extent those resources of universities like Harvard and MIT through things like that.
Thank you, Nishchay. I am overwhelmed with the amount of questions that there are, and so I'm just putting down a quick email address for myself. I know there's little time and too many questions to answer, but for everything else on profile building, or for you to connect with Nishchay, or for you to gain access to the Upgrad Excel pathway, which is the 1+3 or a 2+2 program that we run for universities where you transfer to the United States or Germany, or Australia, the UK, Canada, Germany, Finland. Um, eh, feel free to write to us. Of course, your counselors will get in touch with you the next 24 hours. Make sure you put
Uh,
the request to you. Uh, yes, Nishchit, go ahead.
so I'd just like to have a quick plug-in. If you have some more questions, firstly, like of course you can email it to sir. But other than that, I have a podcast with Upgrad coming out this Monday. So if you guys like, that might answer a lot of your questions too.
Thank you, Nishchit. Uh, we'd love for you guys to connect on our Instagram handle or a handle on Facebook. And, we regularly keep posting different pieces of content with which you can know the Excel pathway better. But feel free to write to me. Feel free to watch our Instagram handle and watch our podcast that's recently released by the name of The Lighthouse. You will see links of it on the chat box. But thank you so much, everybody, for your time. I think it's been more than a pleasure having this chat. Um, of course, the studying abroad can be an uncharted path, and so a lot of guidance and coaching and mentoring is necessary. More than that, I think the need to be certain and confident about the path is there. But remember that you can have all the facts and all the figures and all the rationale in front of you, and and it'll still not be enough for you to decide on which path. But I think if you're if there's a deeper sense of underpinning conviction behind you, backing you, make that choice for yourself right now. Start in India, start early, start online. In the next 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, pick the right major, select the right school, have the right scholarship working out for you, and then you move. So the point I'm trying to tell you is that there are some decisions that only make sense after you've made them. Yes. Um, I wish you guys all the best. Make sure that you choose wisely, choose safe, but also in this whole dynamic environment of so many changes to visas and the length of the post-study work and so on and so forth, the flexibility or that choice or that ability for you to choose between different parts of the world for the same credits that you pursue in India is consequentially very important right now. So my advice to you would be to be safe, to be secure about how you choose things. And I wish you guys all the very best. And a special shout out and thank you to Nishchay. Yes, you'll get the recordings for the webinar emailed to each one of you. But feel free and please email any pending questions to me and join our follow our Instagram handle to know more. And I'd let Nishchay give his valedictorian note, and then we end the webinar.
All right. So it's my pleasure to be here. Firstly, thank you so much for having me. It's been a wonderful session, and I'm glad I could help students who are like me 2 years back, struggling to make a decision. And I know if I had a session like that or get at least 50% of these answers which we answered today answered, it would have been a lot more smoother in terms of my uh, like mental health journey, because I was a little on the anxious side. I had a lot of questions, and I'm very sure a lot of the students in this webinar today would have had the same questions which were being answered today. So I'm glad I could be of help, and it's a really good pathway because it leaves you open to opportunities even after a year or 2 years into your degree. You can still decide your trajectory on what university you want to choose, which country you want to go, since it's a really unique model. But it's really unfortunate, due to a lot of misconceptions and misunderstanding, people miss out on this. So I'm glad I could be a part of it and answer all the questions. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Nishchay. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, everybody who joined us on a Saturday morning. Thank you. Wishing you
All
guys
right.
wonderful weekend. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.